So for today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I crocheted this crochet cardigan. This was a gift from my mum that I made, but I did film like the whole process. And then I've also written down like a bunch of notes on like every step that I took so that I could share it with you guys. I personally love free tutorials on YouTube. That's kind of like how I learned how to crochet. So I thought I would make one. And I also love cardigans, so it's like a double whammy as well. But it is kind of like a versatile pattern, so if you wanted to like change up like aspects of it to suit your own style, you can do. I wanted to make sure that that was like, you know, it wasn't just like a strict pattern like this is how you do this. I wanted to make sure it was like, you know, it had range, it had versatility to it. But anyway, I personally used this super chunky, super soft alpaca yarn. It was undyed, so it was a little bit on the cheaper side. But I used like 10 balls, and they were like 100-gram balls each, which was like 1,000 grams, which sounds like a lot, like thinking about it now. But with like the super chunky yarn, you don't get like as much yardage in each ball, so like you end up needing more of it. But it's very super soft, and you could probably do it with like cotton yarn, or you could do it with like a mix of like normal wool and like some mohair as well. Again, the versatility for you guys. But I hope you enjoy, and I hope you get to make your own crochet cardigan, because there's nothing better than a crochet cardigan that you made as well. So enjoy!
So for this project, I'm going to be using a 4.5mm crochet hook. This is relative to the yarn that I'm using, so you just use whatever crochet hook is relative to the yarn that you're using. I started with a foundation chain of about 40 stitches. In this project, I'm using a double crochet or a treble crochet in English. For some reason, I just prefer the American terms. So for a foundation chain, I started by chaining up by 2, then yarning over, and then inserting my hook in the first chain, yarning over again, pulling that through the loop, then doing another yarn over, pulling that through the loop to create a chain. And then this is when I would continue with like a double crochet. So I would yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then when you go back to do another foundation chain, you will yarn over, insert your hook into that like little chain space that you made, yarn over again, pull through, yarn over, pull through to make another chain, and then you continue with the double crochet again by yarning over, pull through 2, yarning over, pull through 2. Trying to show you how to do this with the white yarn was kind of hard, so I've switched to a pink yarn just so you can like see a little bit better. Next, we're going to break it into different sections, and we're going to use markers to do this. The markers is where we're going to be doing the increases for the arms, so I'm just going to tell you where I put my markers because it's easier. So I put my stitch markers in the 2nd stitch, the 9th stitch, the 32nd stitch, and the 39th stitch. We're going to increase in these markers for the arms, and then we're also going to increase at the very end of each row, every other row. So you'll do a row of increase, and then a normal row, and then a row of increase, and a normal row, and so on and so on and so on. Do a normal increase, so I'll do like a normal double crochet, and then I'll go back into that same hole and do a normal double crochet to create that increase. Then when it gets to the markers and you do the increase for the shoulders, it's a slightly different increase than what like a normal increase would be. You do like a normal double crochet as usual, but then instead of like going straight back in with a normal double crochet, you're gonna chain 2, and then you're gonna go back into that hole and do another double crochet. And then there'll be your shoulder increases. I did about 9 rows of increasing in the arms, and obviously increasing every other row for like the front neckline for like the diagonal, but you can just do 2 however many you feel comfortable. It just depends on like where it's going to sit on your shoulders and where it's going to sit like on your front as well, so just do whatever is best for you. So to chain under the arms, I first started by crocheting as normal up to the 1st stitch marker. Then I chained somewhere between about 12 and 18 is like normally good for me, but if you want to chain more or less, it's going to be like a bit of a trial and error of you just trying it on, seeing if it fits, see if it's too tight or too big or what, and just having to play around. That's normally how I figure out how many chains I want under there, but somewhere between 12 and 18 chains normally works for me. And then I connected it to the stitch after the the second stitch marker, if that makes sense. I did like a normal slip stitch, and then I just crocheted as normal until I got to the next stitch marker, or the third stitch marker. And then I did the same thing. I chained somewhere between about 12 and 18, and then connected it to the stitch after the fourth stitch, if that makes sense. It's a bit confusing, but you don't want to put it where you've increased, you want to put it next to where you've increased. Next, I'm just going to continue working on the body bit of the cardigan. I still increased every other row until I felt like my neckline was where I wanted it to hit. If you wanted to a bit more on the neckline, then you can continue increasing, or if you would prefer the diagonal to stop a lot sooner, then you could stop increasing a lot sooner.
Next one. So this is where I'm up to. After I connected under the armpits, I did 6 more rows of increasing just at the ends. I wanted it to be a little bit baggier because my mum likes to put cardigans over things. But if you wanted it to be a little bit tighter, you could just stop after 3 or 4 rows of increasing. But I'm loving it. It's creating this beautiful little V neckline. The yarn is super soft. I am going to do a bit of a ribbing on it as well, which should help add another inch or so I can put some buttons on, which would be very cute. So yeah, I'll check back in with another update some point soon.
I then started to work on the body, and I just did normal crocheting as usual, and I kept increasing in every other row. I just stopped increasing for the diagonal when my 2 ends met in the middle, and I was happy with that. There is going to be an extra inch added on for the ribbing, but you want the ribbing to overlap slightly because you're going to put buttons on it.
But yeah, this is how much I've got done, and this is how much yarn I have left. So I'm definitely going to need to order some more, which is great. Because I've got the sleeves to do and the ribbing to do. I might do, if it was me, I might actually leave it cropped, but my mum has a bit of a longer torso than me, so I'm probably going to do another row or 2, and then obviously with the ribbing, I'll add an extra inch to it as well.
So to start the sleeves, on that little chain that we did for the under the arm, I found about a stitch somewhere in the middle to just pop my hook through, and then tied on the new and then tied on the yarn, and then I just did a chain up of 2, which is what I normally do when I'm double crocheting. And then you want to crochet into those little loops. As long as you're picking up a loop every time in one of the chains, then you're solid. I also like to do a little decrease at the corners where your increase meets the chain. I think it just helps there not be as much of a hole there, but that is completely up to you if you want to or not. And then I just crocheted as normal all the way back around until I had 1 full row. Then for the next row of the sleeves, I increased in every 3rd stitch. So I did 2 stitches and then an increase, and then 2 stitches and then an increase. This is just because I wanted that balloon sleeve kind of look, but if you wanted to just do a straight down sleeve, then you wouldn't need to do the increases. But I quite like the look of the balloon sleeves. And then after that, I did about 29 rows of just normal crocheting. This was a bit tedious, and this was the bit that took surprisingly long. It was just a lot of rows of normal crocheting, back and forth until rather round and round, until I got to the length that I wanted. But because I did a balloon sleeve, I decided that once I got to the end, I'm gonna have to do a couple rows of decreases. Then for the decrease, this is a little bit more complicated. I would start off by doing a normal double crochet, yarning over, putting my hook through the hole, yarning over again, pulling through, then yarning over and pull through 2. Then instead of finishing off the double crochet, I yarn over, go into the next hole, yarn over again, pull that through the hole, and then I'll yarn over and pull through 3 this time, and you can see the 2 stitches there, and then you'll have 2 loops on your hook, and then you just yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. So my first row of decreases, I decreased in every other stitch. So I did a normal stitch and then a decreased stitch and then a normal stitch and then a decreased stitch. Then I did another row of decreasing, but this time I decreased in every third stitch. So I would do 2 normal double crochets and then a decrease, and then 2 normal double crochets and then a decrease. Then for the ribbing on the sleeves, I did something a little bit different to like normal ribbing. I did something called front post and back post. Then for the front post and back post, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like basically a normal double crochet, but instead of going through the hole, you're going to go around the little post. The double crochet is like the post, you're going to go around it instead of going into the top hole. When you do a front post, you will yarn over, go through the front, around the back, and then back through to the front again, and the little post will look like it's on like the front of your hook, and then you'll just continue with like a normal double crochet. And then for the back post, you will yarn over, then go through the back. You'll yarn over, go through the back, round, and then back through the hole, so it looks like your hook is coming back through the back again. And then it will look like the post is like sitting at the back, and then you'll yarn over, pull through 2, and continue like that. This was so hard to explain. I'm very sorry if this is like a terrible explanation. I did about 6 rows of the front post and back post for the ribbing on the sleeves. It was about 2 inches in total, this, and I just felt like it was what was best and what looked nicest for the sleeves, because it was that like big puffy balloon sleeve.
So I've done both of the sleeves now. I did one of the sleeves off camera because you don't want to see it twice. But I'm really liking the balloon sleeve. Obviously, if you didn't want to do a balloon sleeve, you could just like keep crocheting and not do any increases at the beginning. This is just kind of like a rough guide on like how I made this cardigan, so you can replicate what you want in it. I'm gonna get started now on the ribbing for the bottom bit, and then I'm gonna do the ribbing for the neckline as well, and adding all the buttons and little details and stuff. So I'm gonna get started with that.
Then I moved on to the ribbing around the bottom, and again for this I did the front post and back post ribbing. For this one I only did about 3 rows of front post and back post ribbing, just because I didn't want to have I was running out of yarn for a start, and then also I just didn't want to have 2 inches of ribbing. I felt like 1 inch kind of looked better on the body. Just a little note for the front post and back post on the bottom ribbing. I just have very light tension. I felt like having too tight of a tension kind of made the front post and back post like bunch up a little bit, so just have like loose tension when you're doing this. Then for the ribbing around the neckline, I first started by just like doing like a normal double crochet all the way around the neckline from like one side to the other, and then once I'd done the crocheting all the way around the thing, I could go in with the front post and back post for the ribbing. Again for this, make sure you have like loose tension again. I just felt like having quite tight tension like made it bunch up a little bit and it looked really weird, so just have quite loose tension. I did about 3 rows for the ribbing around the neckline, but before I started my like 2nd row or 3rd row, I wanted to mark out where I wanted my buttonholes to go, because instead of like doing like a front post or a back post, you're just gonna chain 1 and then skip that stitch to make a little hole for your buttons. Surprisingly easy, but I just made sure I put the markers out so I knew where I wanted my buttons, and I knew that they were like semi-evenly spaced out. I didn't count how many like stitches exactly were in between my buttons. I just kind of like eyeballed it a little bit. But if you want to be a bit more like perfectionist, then that's fine, just count your stitches. But I would recommend putting like little markers in there so you know that you need to, instead of like doing like a front post or a back post, you need to chain 1 and then like skip a stitch. I did the chain 1 and skip a stitch for the buttonhole on my 3rd row, and then once I'd like finished doing all of my front post and back post around the neckline. I then obviously weaved in my many ends that I had like accumulated over this project, and then I also sewed on the buttons. Again, I just kind of used where I put like the buttonholes as like a guide for where I wanted the buttons to go. The crochet cardigan is finally done.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like the cardigan. And if you do end up making the cardigan, then please send me like a picture or like tag me on Instagram. I will leave my Instagram down below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.